Oh, Laura. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Take your time. You're good. Mm.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had one of my
Oh,
sons
you're
on
good.
the phone with me.
Yeah, do what you got to do. No, I get it. No worries.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. All right, guys. Let's get this show on the road. Wait for people to join in as they come, pop in. But I was going to talk about, the email dispo, talk about finding buyers, things like that. Is there anything you guys wanted to ask about or questions about since we're here, since we're pocos? Let's see here. Hmm. Is there any particular question that you'd be
Hey, Jared.
more? Yeah,
If my question is too specific to me, you can just point me in the right direction and not handle it now.
sure.
I'm at the part of reviewing some properties and seeing if the numbers work, and you kind of have done like that already before of like running numbers and stuff. So I'm not really asking about that part, but I have this like sort of holdback of, okay, one of the ones I go over today could be right to pursue. And making offers is something I have no trepidation about. That's fun to me. Negotiating, that's fun to me. No worries there. The part is I wouldn't be doing it alone. So
Hmm.
in the sense of both for, let's say, mental power and financial power, I wouldn't be doing it alone. So my question is, if there's people that I like, know, and trust, one in particular, and others, depending on what the property is,
Yeah.
to work with as well. It's like that part. It's
Hmm.
the protecting me, protecting them, merging with them in a way that's beneficial to both striking something that is, let's say, a normal positive arrangement, as well as not just deciding on it, but concreting it in a way that kind of makes it so that it's a positive experience with no issues. And if it does, we have something to go back to that we're all comfortable with of that's what's fair, that's how it's handled. So it's
Yeah.
like that part where I don't really have it all pulled together yet of,
Hmm.
I know I have resources, but like where they are and which ones and what actually, like you often just hear like, well, when you're all done, consult an attorney. Okay, fine. Definitely. Which attorney? Um, and then
Mm.
sometimes you'll hear like, well, here's just like a document that has the basics. That should be good enough for your first few things. Once you're making big bucks, then you have to worry about, those types of things. So it's kind of like I need your style of like, here's a sheet of paper with the 10 steps that you do. Here's my real life advice of what's like functional and practical.
Yeah.
And here's the worst case scenario, which when we talk about it for a second, it's actually not that bad, but now you know what it is so that I
Sure.
can kind of step forward.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, that's a really good question. Basically, if I'm understanding right, is how do I structure partnerships and what are some good tips and how to the basics of a good joint venture agreement? Um, yeah. What kind of is it for? Are they being like a lending partner on it? Or are they just being like they're just helping out with like managing the property? Or what would be the other person's role and your role?
They'd
That you're
be
kind of
mostly the
thinking.
financial portion.
Okay, got it. So they're bringing with the funds, and then you'd be managing the project. You found the deal. You're gonna, all that
Yeah.
stuff. So, so with partnerships, um, and this, I mean, this is actually a really good subject to talk about. But so with partnerships, when you're doing things with other people, uh, and you alluded to this as in your question, which is great. But and paperwork keeps friends friends, right? And so getting everything, assuming the worst case scenario, and have it laid out in your joint venture agreement or your operation document in an LLC, or depending how you guys are doing the partnership, then I think it's gonna be 10 times. You're gonna be glad you did, because it's so much better. It's the same with the prenup. Isn't it better to come up with a solution if we break off when we both like each other and in that case like love each other, versus when we absolutely hate each other, we're mad, and the other person's the most worst person in the entire universe, so on and so forth, right? It's gonna be a lot harder to come up with agreement when we're mad at each other versus when we're in love and happy. It's the same with partnerships, where everyone's excited to work with each other. They wouldn't do it if they weren't otherwise, right? So it's important to cover those worst case scenarios, and that way, as far as like when it comes with hard conversations, maybe they're not doing their part, or maybe they messed up, or maybe this is a scenario that happened that it's not necessarily anyone's fault, but it did happen. And so it makes the conversation a lot easier to approach when it's like, hey, remember when we talked when we first started this, and then your job was supposed to bring in X amount, and then but then you never did, or whatever. Like you're supposed to manage the property, but you just went off to Mexico for 6 months and didn't do anything with it, or whatever it is, right? Going back to that paperwork is so massive, and I understand you understand that, Courtney. That's more for everyone's benefit too, right?
Yeah.
Um, the what I find newer people do more often than not is oh, that's my son. Hang on. I think he wants this. Cool. Does anybody want an 18-year-old college student? I'm selling mine. So, anyways, I'm just kidding. He's awesome, proud of him. One of the biggest things people do is they go, okay, let's figure out the percentages. That's the biggest thing, and I'll tell you how I do it with funds too, so you have a better idea. So figure out the percentages of the deal. What makes sense? How to do this? I think when people get together, like, oh great, there's two of us, it's one deal, we'll just split it 50-50 right down the middle. It is rarely, any partnership is rarely just a 50-50 job. Rarely. There's always one person doing more, one person bringing more to the table. I mean, I've done plenty of transactions where it was 50-50. But in those scenarios, we both brought pretty close to the equal value. So I think it's really easy just to say, oh, there's three of us. Okay, everyone gets 33% deal. And while one of the person is doing all the work, or they brought in the resources, and then the second person helped a little bit, and the third person did absolutely nothing. But when it comes down to payday, they have their hands out like, hey, I'm ready for my 33%. Which is great for that person, but terrible for the other partners, and that's when you get real feel bads. So as far as like structuring, like and this is, it's going to come to your question here in a second. As far as structuring the equity percentages, and when you're talking to a partner, it's like the equity percentages also includes loss. So this is something when you are doing partnerships and like you're the one pitching the deal or pitching the partnership, especially for money. First of all, before you raise money or whatever, like watch the Renatus class of partnerships. That's going to be probably your far most best resource to begin with. But for everyone else that's about to do the partnership, do watch the partnership class in Renatus. But as far as like what percentage is equity, and when you're doing it, I always say like, yeah, the equity position that we're offering for this like raising money is this amount. And it's like, so this, you get a share of the profit and or losses. So if money is lost in the deal, they're in that loss too, of that percentage. So it's always, you never want to guarantee anyone any type of actual return. The only slight guarantee you could do if they're in a lending position, not an equity position. A lending position is where they're more as a lender, and they just get a percentage interest rate, while versus an equity position, they get a percentage of the equity of the profits / losses at the end of the deal. So I like to divide it. Whatever you bring into the table, that's the percentage you get. So if there's been plenty of transactions where I've only got 10% of the deal, because that's all I only brought to the table 10%. There's one deal that we're working on right now that it's in Vernal, and my portion is 15%, right? And if I didn't do this 15%, the deal wouldn't happen. Like, it's done, wouldn't happen. But because I'm doing, but that in reality, you could break you can have that same argument throughout every single step. You know what I mean? If someone didn't bring a lead, the deal's not that particular deal is not going to happen. If someone didn't negotiate and get things under contract, that deal wouldn't happen. If someone didn't bring the funds together, that it wouldn't happen. If someone didn't find a buyer, then this deal wouldn't happen. So you can break that all down. That logic doesn't necessarily hold much weight. So I think it's just the portion that you're providing should be the percentage you're getting. So even though it's like I've had, so that's how I do it. And when I talk to my potential partners about this, it's always asking them what are they looking for? What's their goal? What do they feel is fair? And a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, I think I should get 40% or I should get 50%, or hey, I brought the lead, I should get 60%. Like, okay, cool. So let's look at it. And when I'm looking at partnerships, sometimes I'll get like a column, okay? Because I explain like this is how I normally I do partnerships, and everything's negotiable, and leave it open, right? So we can always negotiate, a little bit more, less, whatever. I mean, totally fine. And what we'll do is just write down, okay, so what are you planning to do with this deal, right? And this is more of like maybe not so much lending, but just as a partner, you brought something to deal with his lead, you brought the buyer, whatever. It's like, okay, you found the lead. Okay, that's worth it. You made all the calls. You got the appointment set for us to talk to him about negotiating. Awesome. Okay, who negotiated? Who did this, whatever the steps were, as far as in the particular deal. And you take it out and you just kind of look at it, like what's the percentage? And usually one side is like a lot bigger than the other side. And so it's like when you're looking at that, so what do you think, judging between, and again, there's been so many times where I'm like using me as an example, like where I've gotten the smaller side too, and other people have the bigger side. It's like, okay, cool, yeah, you definitely need the lion's share in this one. You know what I mean? And then okay, well, so what do you think is fair as far as an equity split in this particular scenario? And then it's like, yeah, well, okay, in this scenario, yeah, it looks like it's 30-70, right? The goal whenever we do partnership is to not have any feel bads, right? But that flexibility and negotiation has to be like really upfront, like as far as like making sure they don't have any thoughts or any like why is he taking so much percentage, or why is she taking why or yourself, like why do I need to get this percentage versus a smaller one or bigger one or whatever it is. So figuring that out and actually having a conversation and realizing what we're actually bringing to the table, but maybe it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna be part of this deal. I'm just gonna get transaction. I'm gonna be doing all this stuff. Or I'm really good at everything else and get things under contract, but it's really help finding a buyer or whatever it is. So it's worth it to kind of get into partnership. So as far as like finding like gap funding, when I do it very similar to Mitch's equity split blend. So when you're looking at a transaction, here, let me get some more visual. It'll help me keep track of what I'm talking about too.
When you say equity split blend, do you just mean the concept that he's discussed before of how he does it, or are you saying he's got a specific class on just that?
I think, well, no, he doesn't have a class on, well, in his investor secret, he might, I'm not sure, but.
And is the class you're talking about raising money and partners with?
Yes. And I think it's by Matt Sorsen or something, like whatever his name is. I think that's the class.
Is it Jerome Bergeson for raising money and partnerships? Is there a different one with Matt?
There was one with Matt. Okay. That's the one I've watched. I haven't watched the one with Jerome. So if you look up the instructor Matt or Sorsen, and then it might be back there. I don't know if it's going to be. It's not may not be in like in a track,
Okay.
but it'll be back there.
Okay. I'll look up by name too then.
So with funds, right? So let's just say after you know for like an equity split, this is it seems fair. It seems fair. Why? Not only seems, I feel like it's fair too, right? How he does this, and so I've adopted this too, pretty much from the get go. But let's just say, like, so we're buying a property, and uh, let's just say we need, so we're gonna buy, or I don't know, let's just say 300. Let's just do 300,000. Okay, so it's 300,000 for the property. Okay, to purchase it. And it needs with $50,000 as far as rehab. So purchase price, rehab, and I'm just kind of like really loosey goosey with some of these numbers here. You know, we'll say holding costs, 20K, and then closing. We'll just say another 50,000 for just all other expenses. Okay. So this is everything from that. So this deal requires $400,000 in funds to make happen. Okay. Now you're planning to sell it off. You're planning to sell it at 450. That's the ARV. So the projected profit is well, 50,000. Good so far? 50K profit. Boom. Okay. So that's projected. We're trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to split this up with equity partner and yourself. So in this scenario, and this is if they're just being equity partner. I mean, if they're being equity partner and then plus they're managing the property or they're bringing other stuff to the table, then it needs to be tweaked. But as far as like if they're just bringing a wad of cash to the deal, this is how we structure it. Okay.
What
again,
I think it's going to end up being though is a buy and hold and equity partner.
okay, yeah, you can do this exact same strategy on or scenario on this if you want, to make it long term, short term, whatever it is. Instead of like 50,000 profits, it could just be percentage of the cash flow. Now, so this deal requires $400,000 to work, right? Let's say what I got $300,000 from hard money. Hard money, okay? So we just need $100,000 in private funds. Okay, so if hard money, private funds, we need, or private lending, whatever you want to look at it. So if partner B is like, hey, listen, I got a HELOC, or I got $100,000 from my 401k that I can pull out or whatever. Yeah, I'm more than happy to partner with it. So what's the split? Actually, 50%, right? I was like, well, I mean, maybe. I mean, let's look at it, and I'll write this out with them. Like this is like back of the napkin, kind of just showing the numbers, right? Like, so this is going to cost this. This is breakdown of the numbers. I'm bringing in a lender that's coming in with a 300 that we need to purchase the property. I just need the 100,000 for rehab and holding costs and everything else I would need. So out of the 400, he's bringing in 100,000. Well, I am also will bring the deal, and also like I'm securing the other funds that need to happen. So what's the percentage of 100 out of 400? That's an easy math. Did that on purpose. Okay.
25.
25%. So for the lender that's putting the private fund equity partner, if they're equity partner, they're not a lender. So you got to make sure that you're using the right terminology. Again, watch the class, check with the attorney, all that. Just, I mean, before you actually do something like this or get things structured. So that's kind of my my negotiations. Like, hey, listen, you brought in 1/4 of the funds we need. I'm going to manage the property. I found the property. I brought the other 3/3. You get 1/4 of the profits and losses. That's your equity position. So they would typically make more in an equity position than if it is lending, but there's higher risk because if the deal goes bad, then they actually potentially lose money. In a lending position, regardless if this deal goes good or bad, the investor still has to come up with the interest and repay the person, right? So it's more secure, but as a lending position, but um, they're not they don't the smaller potential profit. Like they know exactly what they're going to make. Like it's going to be cut and dry, 10%, 5%, whatever, 12%, 15%, whatever percentage you guys figured out. That's what it is. But an equity position, that's like a partner. Okay, you're in it with me, you know, and it's great for the flipper in this scenario because one, you are giving up more potential profit doing it this way. However, if things go sideways, you're more protected because in if let's just say we're planning to sell at 450, the market crashes, we're $400,000 in this property, you know, and so it's gonna be kind of hard to uh, pay back both. You can refi hard money out, maybe, you know, depending on how far it goes down, or if you have to change strategies for whatever reason. Um, it's easier to refi the hard money person out and then leave equity person in with you as a partner, as a rental partner, right? So as equity partner, like on flip, and this is true for long term, like they get 25% of the rents of the cash flow, right? So that would be so it's $50,000 on a flip example. So what is divide by 4? That'd be what? That's like 12,000. So if everything goes to plan, and again, when you're talking to people about this, especially if they're bringing in money, never guarantee, especially if it's equity position, like you need to use, I mean, it's so many times where I'm like, it's so clear when I'm having conversation with money with a lender, like everything could go sideways, man. And this is my plan B, plan C, plan D if things go bad. But as you're talking about numbers, so as everything goes to plan, you know, I don't know, maybe we can sell it for the 450. Here's the reason why I can sell for this price. Could be a little more, could be a little less. But if our profit is exactly as we expect it to be, then they would leave with 12,500 plus their original $100,000 back in this flip scenario, which would give them a 12.5% return ROI on their 100,000. And actually, because if it flip only takes 6 months, it would actually be 24%, 24 or 25% actually, because it's when you're figuring out ROIs, it's supposed to be in a yearly basis. So the annual ROI on that would be like 25% because that 12% was done in 6 months. 12.5. So it's like the potential is a lot higher than if it's still like a lending if they lend it on 10% or whatever. But yeah, they're in the risk. So if it was like a rental scenario where instead of the profit being, oh, that was a lot more smaller than I was expecting. Okay, instead of the profit being 50,000, like if the rent is 2,000 and they're bringing in the 100,000, maybe got seller financing, they do some rehab or whatever, and so let's say they're going to get the 25% of the rents, right? But that's after all expenses. So if the mortgage is 1,200, so like the mortgage payment, this is the rent. You also got to factor in, so you got to get management. So management, which is usually about 10%, so 200 bucks there. You got to do reserves for maintenance. Like that's another 10%, honestly. And then ideally would be for so reserves, maintenance, and then vacancies. You can do 5% there for a vacant. So vacancies is basically it's this money you're setting aside where because eventually it's going to be vacant. It's just going to happen. Eventually, you're going to have to do maintenance. You're going to have to pay management if you're doing management fees. So those are just things that are in a monthly basis that you need to really think about and consider when you're doing like a long-term rental. And this is good to know even if you're wholesaling it, so you can run the numbers as the buyer and see like, oh yeah, this doesn't cash flow at all, or like only cash flows like. And there's some buyers like, as long as it's like if it's turnkey and they can just get it and it breaks even, like they're in it for a longer term play, like they're growing wealth, not necessarily looking for cash flow because they have enough cash flow. Then there are some buyers that'll do that, but they're far in between. Most people are growing wealth, they want to grow wealth and have more add to their cash flow because reasons, money. So the cost of doing the rental parts are is look at 12, 14, 16, 17,000, okay? Or 17,000. Geez, that's a heck of a rent. So $1,700 is the rental expense. So the expense. So 1,700 rental expense, which leaves $300 in cash flow. Now, if the lenders gets 25% in this made up example, they get 25% of, well, and here's the thing, it's all negotiable. If they just want cash flow, then they just get 25% of the 300, right? 25%. Oops. Right, so I think I'll be able to figure it out. So they're going to get a whopping of $75 a month in the cash flow, which is a yearly $900 in a year, as in a year aspect. But if they put in 100,000, I think I need to do it a little. So that's like 0.9%. So let's say 1% ROI on their cash flow. So most, probably wouldn't necessarily want that. This is all made up examples, right? However, that's just one way rentals. So a rental, you get paid 4 different ways. So cash flow, which is the $75 or $300 that we just kind of talked about, right? So cash flow. So for the money investor, they get 1% back. That's like, oh man, they can put the money in a CD and get better returns. But then they have appreciation. So they have the appreciation. So as the value, as you're holding it for 5 years or whatever, and you can put time frame, like you can have a buyout in your partner after 5 years, you're going to buy them out of their equity and their money back that they originally put in. You can do refinance, sell, whatever. So then they're out, then you have the deal for yourself. So appreciation, deappreciation, which is tax benefits. So taxes. So that you would have to kind of figure out how to do beforehand, because if the value of the property is 400,000, or let's just say if you have 425, right? No, we said 450. 450. If I'm just like going too fast, or if I'm saying something doesn't make any sense, like feel free to yell.
If your agreement, let's say just for easy math is 50-50, are you then doing 50-50 on, so like of the 4 different ways that you make money of it, of equity as it builds and when you ever sell it, and of tax benefits?
Yep. So
Okay.
the answer is definite maybe. It's whatever you guys agree upon.
Well, if you agreed on 50-50, like, do you just say to your accountant, like, I bought a property this year and so did this other person, and we're doing half on our tax benefits?
Typically, yes, right? But it doesn't have to be. It could be like 50-50 in cash flow, 50-50 in equity, 50-50 in the depreciation, or maybe you're take the tax benefit, the benefits, and then I'm going to take the cash flow, or you can do all sorts of however you want to, right?
Okay.
Whatever makes sense for both parties. Because maybe it's like, you know what? I don't really need $75 doesn't really interest me as far as like cash flow goes. But I tell you what, I already have a lot of cash flow and I need more deductions. That's where I'm in this thing.
Yeah.
So if I can get all of the taxes, all the appreciation, I can claim that on my taxes, and then you can get all the cash flow and then the appreciation, and then amortization. That's the third one or fourth one. So this is appreciation. Value goes up over time, tax benefits, and then because the renter's paying down your mortgage every single month because they're paying you the 2,000, you're paying out of that 2,000, you're paying the $1,200 a month, and it lowers the principal in the loan, which means it's raising the equity because the appreciation's increasing the value of the house, amortization lowering how much you owe, which increases the equity position. Okay.
Yeah.
So amortization, and I don't know, I misspell everything, so I don't do abbreviations. Anyways, so we have the amortization, depreciation, appreciation, and cash flow. And yeah, so whatever you guys want, like it really doesn't. To make, if you want to, like, everyone's gonna split down right in the middle. Cool, you can definitely do something like that, right? So he's walking away with $150,000 in the cash flow. The appreciation and amortization, that only really realized when you sell the property or refinance, get a cash back refi. So this doesn't necessarily pay off right away, but it will over time. And then the taxes, well, yeah, at the end of the year, you get the tax benefit. So it really it changes a lot of the numbers as far as like what the appreciation is. Even if you're raising it by the national average, not counting the last few years because it's gone a lot higher, but it's like 3.5%. Times 450 for 1 year. So it's just 3.5% off from the 450. It'll raise up by 15,750. So like the value of the home in that first year will go up by 15,000, which is a lot better than $900 that the cash flow would have got if they're just getting on the 25%, right? Or even 150, it's a lot better, if that makes sense. So appreciation and then the taxes, amortization, you can figure that out too just by going to amortization calculator and seeing what the actual stuff get paid in the principal for that year, and you can just do the math by that. So even though like the cash flow is only like 300 total, it doesn't give great ROI, but when you factor in the other three for long-term like wealth building, ROI jumps up dramatically. It can beat stocks like every single time. It's a rarity when I don't see cash can beat stock or can not beat stocks unless they get lucky.
So
Did I
can I
ask that
do,
question, or did I throw in more?
yeah, but can you answer part of it from a functional sense, like a little bit lower levels?
Okay.
So like, let's say you I have a joint venture agreement, you sign it, you agree on 50-50, you agree that you're going to buy it, improve it, hold it, you agree what portion for taxes, like all of those things get figured out. Now, let's say that was all done in the next hour, and now we're making offer on properties. The property offer, if I have an LLC and they have an LLC, are we having a different mutual LLC that we own 50-50 and then purchasing the property and making offers in the LLC's name? And are we having a bank account in the LLC's name? Because they have business, I have business, so I'd assume it wouldn't be either of those LLCs. And then if that's yes or whatever to those, do we have a bank account in the name where the tenant's money is being deposited, where the percentages for the, like you mentioned, saving up for repairs and vacancies, so that 5% and that 10% that you mentioned before, are those sitting in a bank account that's owned by a LLC that we each have 50-50 ownership on? And one person that's like, we'll say, doing the work is actually managing it, going in and out and arranging, getting the tenants in and arranging the repairs and all that. But the kind of in and out flow of where everything sits, where it goes, how it's paid is handled from that. Or am I making the system up and there's a better one?
The answer to that is whatever you guys want.
Okay.
And that's why I love partnerships, because it really,
Yeah.
and I'll give you an example what I would prefer and how I do things. But But in reality, it really is like, because I don't want to any like, as far as like you guys are looking at this and like, okay, Jared suggested I do this, or I watched like the class. And by the way, if anything that attorney says, or that, any of the renowned instructors, they say different than what I'm saying, trust them more than me. Let's just put it, okay.
Yeah.
This is just a general idea. I'm no attorney. This is just the world of Jared. Okay. So that question is great. So like I have me, Rachel, we're locked in. We're planning to do multiple deals together. We're gonna tear up Tennessee. We're gonna do some damage. Okay. So with that, so joint venture, right? That's for joint venture. I like to use joint ventures for the at least that when we're doing a couple. So because like we may have the initial like, yeah, let's start doing some deals together. So I would recommend at the very first you do a couple as in is just in a joint venture. So Rachel's gonna have, she's gonna have R and M LLC, and then we have Challenge Solver LLC, which is my company, her company, and so the JV would be with RM LLC and Challenge Solver LLC as a partner. So not necessarily us. So there's like an extra barrier there of protection, right? So there's like it's yes, we're doing a joint venture, and in that joint venture, it could be like, okay, we're going to do it in Rachel's her company, or we're going to do it my company as far as like actually making the offer in or whatever. Like it doesn't necessarily matter as long as you have the JV. That's going to be probably the best thing for you. Then if it's like, hey, this is phenomenal. I love working with you. I want to do more deals. The last two were perfect. Let's just make things more permanent. Okay, cool. Then you can do a multi-member LLC where as part of the owners of the LLC is Challenge Solver LLC and then RM LLC as owners of this company. So you still have the same kind of double protect. Well, this is like triple protection, right? Your company is partnering with that. It's like, well, I don't have an LLC set up yet. That's fine. Then maybe it's RM LLC with Jared Brenchley because I don't have an LLC yet. I mean, for right now, I don't know. I'll tell you what I did. I'm not telling anyone to do this stuff. This is just, but I was advised and I followed his instruction. Like first make some money and then worry about getting the LLCs going. So like do a couple deals first, and then great. Now I can invest the money I made, get an LLC, have attorney draw it up. So it's nice, formatted correctly. Because the joint LLC needs to be done correctly too. Because in the joint venture, it's going to explain the percentages. It's going to explain the roles, the responsibilities, who gets what's the consequences, all that stuff. In a joint venture, there's an operation agreement, and that'll explain the same thing as your LLC would. Now, in there, to answer your question, like, well, how do I like who does what or whatever? So that's whatever you guys like. If RM is doing all of the work, all of the strategies, or not strategies, he's like finding the deals, and I'm just coming in on the flips and bringing the cash that's needed. Then those roles are set up in the operation agreement. But as far as like the account, then when you get to this point, when you have your own LLC, then yeah, it's probably a good idea to have its own company, its own bank account, which I would recommend. Like transparency creates better partnerships. So Rachel should never have to guess what's in that bank account, where's that money going, what's going on. Maybe even have like an active P&L document where you can share, where like, hey, this expense went to here. You can do a lot of things like that, where I can go in or Rachel can go in and see about, okay, what the heck did Jared? He said we need to raise an extra $15,000 to finish this project. What did he spend the money on we first started with? And so you can go through and look at it, without even having like, and you can ask questions and figure out what blew up. Then it's like when it comes to like when they don't know what's happening and then you're not communicating well enough, then that's gonna that's where people get feel bads, and then they're like, okay, wait a minute, what's really going on here, right? So transparency is probably the rule number one of any type of partnerships throughout the entire process. And if your partner is not, if you want your this is just rules, if the partner's not telling you enough about the deal, if you don't say anything about that, if you don't express you want to know more information about the deal or want to be filled in more, or you want to have, if you don't express that and just have that feel bad and not say anything, that's on you 100%. If me and Rachel are in this partnership and she's the one managing it, and I really like to be informed of kind of what every step is, or want to have a communication on a regular basis, and she's just going ham doing work, like she do nothing wrong, nothing illegal, she's just working hard, and like, oh man, I don't know what's going on with the deal, like, and as far as she's concerned, like, maybe I don't care about knowing every single step. She doesn't want to bother me telling me, hey, we just had the painter come over, we had this and this. She thinks she's helping, she's being nice by handling it, and while I'm losing sleep because I'm worried about what she's doing or what she's done with my money, blah 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 blah. So if you don't communicate that as a partner, that's on you. Now, if I communicate to Rachel, like, hey, listen, you're doing a great job. I just need to, can we just set like a scheduled date? And that could be an operation agreement, could be in the JV, and you can amend those too. But can we a date where we actually communicate, and I just want to see what's going on, maybe some update pictures every couple of weeks or something like that, just so I feel good. Like, oh yeah, sure. I just didn't want to bother you, or what, you know what I mean? So transparency, communication, that is key. Don't assume anything, only communicate. Never assume, never assume, just communicate. So yes, to answer your question as far as like bank accounts and who should be able to get access to it, so on and so forth, then yeah, and it depends on maybe in the joint venture you have a third person that wants to be involved. They're brand spanking new, and they just maybe they're a bird dog, and instead of getting like a finder's fee, they wanted a percentage, so maybe they get like 3% of the equity or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know if I want to have the 3% equity guy have access to my bank account. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't, but probably not. Not at least access to transfer out. I mean, they should be involved as far as like seeing the P&Ls and everything like that. But that's just something, just a little add-in. So maybe not everything, if all they did is this and they want trying to learn, like, that's cool, awesome. But you're 3%, I mean, I don't know, that's kind of my thoughts, right? So it kind of depends on the scenario, the situation. Did I answer that question, Courtney, or did I go off and...
I think you did. I think you did a great job of not like accidentally playing attorney and just kind of like speaking to the idea of it as
right.
So from what I get out of it with the situation that I'm looking forward to, one, review joint venture agreements and operating agreements and other documents that you mentioned, like profit and loss and things like that later. Set up an LLC that we can essentially share with the percentages of it, set up a bank account for that, have them be joint on the bank account so they can have the transparency, discuss with them in advance what the communication and follow-up will be, so that way their expectation and mine match, in addition to all of the percentages for the 4 different ways where money can be made on it, as well as at least a 1, 2, 3 step kind of exit plan of like, this is what we're expecting, but if not, we will do this. That was super helpful. I looked at the classes too, and there is the Raising Money Partnership with Jerome Bergeson, but when I put in Matt's name, which I fixed because he spells it with 1 T, I realized he only has the IRA class.
Really?
Unless the search is kind of just glitching. But
Well, they've been when they're switching over instructors, a lot of times they removed it. Like, for example, Jay Massey, he did. I don't think he has any classes right now, but Jay Massey was one of my favorite instructors. Like, he did the short-term rental classes before they re-recorded it. He did a bunch of other stuff. Investor ID. I think they still have that of him.
I think they do. I just saw it the other day.
Oh, perfect. So, but he also did one which I think it's a travesty that took this off. I found like 2 days ago the recording. So I have the recordings. I downloaded when I had it. If anybody wants it, it's Partner Renatus. Hit me up. but he went over and like if you guys think like some of the like how I negotiate and doing wordsmithing or being a word ninja, like he talks about actual sale tactics, how to get people to say yes. It is a really good class. Like there's stuff I learned from there that I've actively still used today, and they took it's not there anymore. You can't find it,
Huh, okay.
and that's no like you know
Yeah.
slight to Renatus by any means. I'm just saying that's just what they had new classes, they removed it and whatever. So, but yeah, bummed out because he absolutely one of my favorite instructors.
Yeah, his investor ID was the one I was gonna start next. And then he does a financial strategies one, but not the one that you were speaking of. So maybe I'll text you later and ask you for that one.
Right.
Great. Okay, that definitely helped.
Another way if you're doing like a long-term play.
Yeah.
So let's just say, and this is just I'm throwing out there. What you could do, yeah, I can do that for you. So maybe I can just make maybe I can just create a link and just throw it in the community because it's really good. Okay, so with someone being the lender and it's long-term play and you want an option to get them out, like me, Rachel, in partnerships, but eventually we're not going to be partners forever, right? She's going to be sick of every time she talks to me, get the reflection off my bald head. It's just like her eyes are just getting bad. She's like it's a physical challenge now. So having options to get out of partnerships and buying the person out is something you always want to consider. One thing I've done, like when we had a couple of short-term rentals with the partnerships, it's like, okay, cool. Hey, listen, the cash flow on this property is a 300. You get 100% of the cash flow until you are paid back your 100,000 or whatever it is, right? Now, usually with short-term rentals, we're talking like $20,000-$30,000 part that they're throwing in because we did lease arbitrage. So but we're cash flowing like $1,000 a month. So anyways, so you're getting you get all the cash flow until you get back the 100%, and then you get 10% of the equity and everything else forever as part of this deal. So it's like I don't make any money until you get paid back, which is another way to pitch it too. Like, but they may not worry about that. So why not get cash flow for yourself too, right? So it's okay. But this is just one idea. This is one way to kind of structure it. And it could be and the percentage could be whatever. I'm just gonna throw it out there. But they got their money back, and now this person is 10% in. That's 10% equity. They got their money back, and now everything else is just gravy. They're going to get 10% of the cash flow now for as long as you own the property. When you sell it, cash out, refi, whatever, they get 10% of that. Which gives them the appreciation amortization benefits. I don't know if you want to negotiate the taxes thing because that can be kind of complicated, but as long as you have good tax experts, then they can figure it out, right? So that could be something too, where like you get all the money or you get a higher percentage until that money gets back to you, and now you're just left in as an equity partner for X amount. And then you have a buyout option for either party. So after a certain period of time, if there's $300,000 in equity, and if your equity position is 50%, if I give you 150,000, you're out of the partnership, and now the partner A is full owner of the entire deal. One thing that Matt talked about in his class that I definitely remember is the 4 Ds. Maybe it's 3 Ds. As I talk about it, I might change to 3 because I don't remember. So we have divorce. Oh, it's 3 Ds. It's 3. So it's divorce, dismemberment, and death. Those 3 things you really can't necessarily, the divorce maybe a little bit, but you can't really control if you're going to be dismembered or die. Divorce, you can kind of control that, just don't be a dick, be a good partner. But still, maybe maybe nothing to do with you, but the other person decides, hey, I'm sick of looking at your bald face, and they leave, nothing I can do about it. So what happens with that? Because in especially in a long-term play, in like short-term deals, like I mean, it doesn't necessarily, you know, it's because it's so short, it's very unlikely, not necessarily that big of a challenge. But for a long-term play, like what you're suggesting you're getting into, Courtney,
Yeah.
it's like what happens when you get divorced? So because here's the thing. Let's just say like me and Rachel are in this. We have the LLC. We're in this agreement. We have a couple of rental properties together. If in the divorce, my wife wins my partnership that I have my percentage of the ownership in those properties, guess what? Now Rachel's in partnership with my wife. She doesn't know, or I guess in this scenario, my ex-wife, right? She doesn't know her. I mean, she could be fine, could be partnership, but maybe she doesn't have all the expertise that I have, or that knows exactly what I'm doing. Maybe she's just expecting the cash flow, while in reality, I was the active partner managing the property, and now she has that responsibility now that may or may not do it. So now Rachel's like forced into a partnership with someone she doesn't know or want to have a partnership with, you know, on these 5 properties.
Are you saying if the partner that I have, who I would likely be dealing with almost entirely, gets divorced, it's like them and their ex become two different entities that I'm dealing with in their
Well, yeah,
kind of
because
unhappiness?
it's an asset. So these rentals properties,
Mhm.
his equitable interests are assets he acquired during the marriage.
Mhm.
Which I mean, providing, you know,
Gotcha.
this is state law and lots of other things, but so as that's part of the marital asset. The
Gotcha.
companies that he owns is part of the marital assets. So in reality, it's actually not so much the properties, but his percentage in the LLC that owns these properties.
Gotcha.
So if as part of the divorce decree, you can put in there as far as like if either party is starts to divorce, then the other party is forced to do a buyout slash refi, to get the person out, or and maybe like, you know, I actually like Jared's wife better than Jared, so this is the best thing ever, and then, you know, so like leave options open, but let the other person decide. So if Rachel's gonna, you know, be stuck with me or like the spouse or whatever, then put some options where they can pay out, right? What happens if I get dismembered and I get in a car accident, I can no longer perform the duties that I was doing? How does the percentages switch? How does the responsibility switch? What happens with that? You know, and then in death, what does the percentages switch? Like, because maybe Rachel's gonna have to do more that I'm dead or dismembered, because it's gonna kind of be very similar. But so maybe the heirs are gonna get X percentage of the equity. So she picks up more responsibility, but she's picking up more equity in return, but still like leaves the heirs, or you know, dismembered person with that same percentage, even though they can't perform the duty they once were, but they're giving up equity because they couldn't do that
So I see how this could go in like 1,000 different directions, and I assume
easily.
if your partner gets divorced, none of those things go in good directions. Is it
Right.
unrealistic to just put in the agreement in advance that if your partner gets divorced, or any of the 3Ds,
Or files.
that 25% of the equity in the property gets refied out and given to that partner's person, and that is like the only agreement that will be struck? And if there's no equity in the property, or no significant equity in the property over $5,000 or something, that essentially there is no change to the agreement, like meaning that like if there's money you can have some, and otherwise nothing, like no,
But
you're
then,
done.
right, but then she's still a partnership with the ex, right?
Gotcha. So
So
you
if we're
can't have in the agreement that they kind of write themselves out of it. That if there's
I
money
mean,
for them to have, they have some,
you
otherwise they just
can.
use themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, but as far as like I wouldn't put in if there's no equity in there. I don't know if I'd put that in there. I just put in would buy out X percent of whatever and maybe you have to do like a third party, um what's the word, appraisal on those properties, and then that's the price that's based on where you'd have to pay them out. So and that could be $1 or like negative. Oh crap. So I guess, you know, you can put contingencies on however you want to structure it, right?
And
However you,
that, since it's that partner, that could come from their portion of the equity anyway. So if their spouse is going to get 25% of it, then they can take that from their half.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Or what? Yeah.
There's
So
so many things to think of.
yeah.
So you
exactly.
do these, and you do these for years, and different kinds, and all the kind. And I get we have different personalities and
Yep.
and such. And you may like short-term ones, and where you're adding value and then kind of getting out of deal versus what I'm looking at with this of a long-term equity arrangement and then just layering them one on top of the other.
So
we're talking about people, a lot of kids about to go to college. So like, so I guess this may not be the one you do the most of, but is there anything else that I'm missing as far as thinking of?
So on a personal note, the life of Jared. So like when in 1 year I acquired 15 short-term rentals, and I partnered on all of them, and I think it was 8 partners at the time. With that experience, and there's things I could have done so much better, and so many different things. I could have been such a better partner. It's insane how much I could have done. But on the same hand, like for me, being an executive, as far as the drive concerned, like one of my biggest things in the executive is control and winning. If I'm not the one in control of a deal, then I don't want to be part of the deal. Like that's just me, right? I mean, there has been scenarios where I've been the money partner, and I kind of like this. Okay, that's over there. I have to tell myself, that's Rachel got this. I'm fine. I got it. Don't worry about it. So it's like from comfort level, and so I had people where amazing partners, all of them were really good, honestly. But there were some that were gave me more stress instead of like, okay, we're doing this together, but it's just like trying to micromanage. Like, no, I got that. We're doing it this way because this is what we're doing with all the other units, and it's working. Like I'm a if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy. And so, and it's good to hear feedback because they have really good ideas. But it's again, and hold up point. Point being, there was a lot of things that I absolutely hated, and so for me, I have a rule where if it's a long-term play, it needs to be just this guy. So I don't like to do the long-term, longer than a year in a partnership.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
that's just to me, right? It's to me. That's my take on things because I've had all of those long-term partnerships, and it brought more stress than I was like, I wish I would have put my money in it. You know what I mean? Because I got 15 units with only $8,000 in my own pocket. That's pretty good. I mean, we're cash flowing like $1,000 every unit. It was doing really good. But there was always this, I don't know. I just, there were a lot of things I didn't like about it. So short term, absolutely. Let's do under a year. Yeah. Partners all day long, wholesale flipping. Sweet. Let's do some stuff. Right. So that's just me.
Gotcha. Okay. I see the value in that. I tremendously see the value in that. And that would be a later goal for me. But I definitely see doing some of these with this person or persons, at least in the beginning. Like it's a mutual goal and it has been for a while. Before going to that. But I now understand how it's like when you were speaking, I was like, it sounds like he doesn't have like a bunch of accounts with other investors on properties. Like I wonder, so like as you were explaining it, I was like, okay, this all makes sense and is good, but it doesn't seem like it's what he does. So now it makes sense. And the control thing makes sense. And the partnerships that are short term, like makes sense. And the benefit of it, like while it's good and mutual and beneficial, and then not having to continue those forever and ever also makes sense. So I totally get it now. And what I didn't get when you were talking, just like, I wonder why that's that way. Your explanation for yourself also seems like, good advice and good information too. So yeah, that was super helpful. That seems, if you put in the link for the one class that they don't have anymore, and then I will also listen to that other class.
And Rachel, I know you have your hand up, so I'll get your question. What was the question you have as far as explaining to self? Maybe I can, or what didn't make sense, so I can help. You said that was one part didn't like.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Rachel's name.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I did say Rachel, but then went back to you. I'm sorry. Supposed to read my mind. Come on.
When you like explain like the whole overview of like it, and I was like, well, can you talk about like the specifics of like, are we opening a bank account? Are we both on it? Is our LCs on? I was asking for the specifics of that. And when you're going through that, you were explaining it like more like the explanation of theory and less well, the 20 times I did it, these are the different ways that I did it, and these are the ones that bombed, and these are the ones that were successful, and these are like what I like. And you were a little high level on that still of like, I was like, I wonder how, like, if you hadn't done the nitty gritty of it. And now I see it's not that you haven't, it's that your partnerships are meant to make the acquisitions a bigger volume than what you do as an individual. Your partnerships for you are not meant to make it so that you're growing wealth with somebody outside your self long term. And that makes a tremendous amount of sense, and probably makes your partnerships also be repeated of like, we had a great year together and then we divided, let's do another. So I definitely see the value in that. For me, for this and these in particular, it's long term, it's them with the finances.
Great. Yeah.
It's kind of like, my strengths, my background in real estate is different, and so is theirs, and it blends really well. So for this, that, but I definitely see, I wouldn't go outside certain realms looking for partners to hold long term, because I think that would be disastrous. So I think you kind of
And the thing is, like, the beauty of real estate, like, you're gonna find something that makes sense for you and your personality. I'm really good at finding deals and negotiating them. So structuring a business where I do partnerships, but it's like all short term, like that works great. If that's something that's still a challenge, and you all will get better at it the more you do it, of course. But if that's something that doesn't quite, even after you're consistently putting effort in, it's just not quite your bag, and you want to just buy a rental, 5 rentals a year, like that's your investor ID, then maybe a long-term partnership. You find something that you really jive with, you get really, you're connected, you guys understand each other well, and it just makes sense. Then sweet, that's awesome. You know what I mean? 100%. So yeah, that's another reason why I love freaking real estate. You just, whatever fits your person, there's something there for you, for sure. So Rachel, sorry, you had your hand up for a minute, and it's been going on. So what?
That's okay. Just a couple of quick requests for clarification. 2 questions. Number one, these DDD clauses, do you bother with them for like if you JV with, like if me and you JV to do one house wholesaling, is that something you would necessarily do that for? And then number 2, thank you. And then number 2, if you do your contract for a year, you could put a clause in it that says after 1 year we renegotiate. And then if you didn't have one, but you thought you should have one, you could just do it at the end of the year. Both those are my questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the beauty of like partnerships. Let's just say we had an agreement about percentages or whatever, and then we come together like, you know what, I think we need to give you an extra percentage because you're doing so much more than what we originally thought, and I feel I want to make sure that you're well compensated, or whatever. Even though like in our agreement it has like in the 1 year we can have the option to renegotiate or do whatever. If you and I are the only partners and we both agree on it, it doesn't matter what other the contract says. We can write up an addendum. We can do something new, a brand new agreement that in there it says voids out that old agreement, and this is what we're doing now. Cool, ready to do it. You can do that. So you can even have the stuff even before those allotted parts on it. The reason why we want to have those allotted parts on it is because if you don't agree and they're like, I think it's perfect the way it is, and then okay, after the year, okay, great, now I'm at the place where I can renegotiate or whatever that time frame is. For us to continue, I need this X thing changed. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, then we need a according to agreement, we're just gonna part ways. We're gonna sell that property. We're gonna split equity, and then adios, muchacho. As far as like a short term, like especially the wholesale, I don't put it. I again, a lot of things I should do, but the 3Ds, I don't even mention in my JVs. I probably should just get a clause in there and put, throw it in there. It's not that, it wouldn't be that complicated to put in there. But like with a lot of like the flips and because with even with the wholesaling, a lot of the stuff, it's like sometimes, again, this may not be the best. This is a bad example of what
this is your
do.
way of doing it.
Yes. So this is, you should be, and if you're doing partnership, you can insist that we do it the right way. Okay. So please do so. But I mean, a lot of times, like the joint ventures, on the wholesale agreements, it's like I because things can change so quickly because we have understanding before we kind of get involved. First of all, like how we're going to split it, and then but things might change where you're going to get more than maybe you do. Maybe you found the buyer, and that was originally part of what was my thing I need to do. So the percentage of equity should be shifted more over to you because you found the buyer. You know what I mean? So I leave things a little bit open until we actually like okay, great, you found the buyer. Okay, let's get the paperwork done real quick and because in my mind, if that person screws me, it's just one deal, and I know it's like the profit on this one's like 20 grand. I was gonna make 10, but they totally screwed me left over. Like, okay, great, I just spent $10,000 to know that person is a liar and cheater. Money well spent. Never doing business with them again. That's
Got it.
and that's not a great like I'm in a position where I can think like that, and sometimes maybe someone's not. So I mean, you want to have the joint ventures and like from the get go and ability to change it up, but sometimes it's just like that. I keep putting that off until like okay, now I know exactly what you did, what I did, and if they really want to insist in on like I need this, and like okay, I'll give it to you, but like we're done. Like I'm not.
There's,
You know what I
yeah, and
mean?
there's so many circumstances that can happen that you cannot, I don't think you could possibly
Yeah.
foresee everything to be able to put a clause in the contract for it. So
Oh yeah, 100%, right? And so
the,
in every joint venture slash operation agreement should be what happens when a conflict happens. How do we, if there's two of us and let's say we are 50-50 partners, how do we make that final decision? That needs to be in there too. You know,
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
you bet. Cool. I think this is a good subject to talk about because I think that's what a lot of people have challenges with, right? But yeah, the partnerships, it's if it's done correctly, you can keep. You can do a lot of cool things. You can do more things with other people than you can without, whether that's short or long term. But yeah, phenomenal.
And Jared, you said this was ended up being a good topic. It sounded as if you didn't know if it would be at first, and now you're finding out that it is. But another reason, if you are thinking about incorporating it more later, whatever, I just want to give you this feedback. Another reason why this is a great topic is I would venture to say that most people going into wholesaling who would be joining your class or challenge don't have a lot of experience in real estate. So for that reason,
Right.
it's even better of a topic for us. So thank you.
Absolutely. And if you guys look in the classroom too, when you go into negotiations, there's actually there is hmm, oh yeah. So there's how to negotiate with the partnerships. So that's another call similar to this one. I think we broke things down a little bit more in detail and structure in this call than I did in that explanation.
Is
But
that what it's called? If we look up how to negotiate with partners in yours?
yes,
Okay.
that's the one exactly. So that might be you're going to hear very similar things on this call than on that one too. But yes, you're going to get that's just there's that. Um, yeah. So, yeah, I'd agree. I think a lot of people, and I see so many times people get in bad partnership or not say bad partnerships where maybe unfair or it's not, and it's rarely intentional. Rarely is it ever intentional where it's like 30-30-30, like, okay, cool, but what did you bring to the table? Like, again, there's always like that third person that did like nothing, but they're more than happy to take the 30%, Um, so I think it's big on just like what does everyone do? Are we all happy? I mean, I want to make sure that that's why it's important to have these conversations beforehand. But yeah, we're 10 minutes past, so let's wrap this up. And any last second questions or clarifications needed for you guys?
I have a quick question, but you can answer it some other time if you want, because I know it is 2:09. I just this wholesale games ends on the 30th.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So
And then
the 30th, and then sorry, you were the next one's going to start like on, I guess technically the second, on that Monday, the following Monday. So I'll put in there for those that aren't in the month the next, like I was literally doing like today and tomorrow, setting all that up, and I should do it way before. But again, and also that for someone that's not in the school games or in the school community, you can get your affiliate link, and if anyone signs up for that, you get 40% forever as long as they're signed up. Like you get 40% of all that. So like 6 months down the road, I come up with a new thing. Here's this, I don't know, fix and flip thing of Bob or whatever it is, and they buy that, you still get 40% of that too, however long down the road. And I'm opening it up to even people that aren't part of Renatus yet. And so if you're, because there is a commission involved if people get interested in buy Renatus, for those who don't know. If they join with your link, it'll always tell me invited by Rachel. So that way I don't, if they're asking about more education, I'm always going to refer them to what taught me, refer them back to Renatus, but I'm going to see like, oh, that's Rachel got this person here. So I'm like, okay, great. Awesome. Let me help you out. This is a great thing. You should definitely do this. Let me get Rachel. She's going to get things signed up for you. So then I don't accidentally take someone else's commissions. Does that make sense?
Cool. Yes. And also I was going to ask, when you do the thing that you're going to set up for us to know, when the next class is starting and everything,
Yeah.
will you please write, give me a way to know, because I don't think I can join the next class. I can't, I'll be eating my stick every time because I'm just, what I have going on is not going to allow me to have the time. But I'm in the year. So can you just kind of put a little thing in there that says what I'll have access to? Before I have to find out by just not having access to it. I know I don't have access to the calls, but like what else? Okay, thank you so much.
Totally. We'll get that cleared too, and I gotta look at it too and make sure that it's perfect.
Jared,
awesome,
if you
guys.
have a formula for when you do the door knocking, can you tell me what it is? Because I'm not going to be able to do the last one or the next one because of stuff that I probably could have avoided if I knew earlier. And you might just kind of, it could just been like, it's every other this, like that. But I didn't notice the pattern.
Every other Saturday is when we're doing
Starting on the second week.
bonanzas. Yeah, so it's just every other Saturday is what I have, and it's in the calendar.
Okay.
So it's usually they're set up for, with a few exceptions. Sometimes we have to switch things up for like holidays or whatever, but it's every other Saturday, and it's just that's when we do the bonanzas.
Cool.
And it could be cold. We didn't do any cold calling bonanza this go around, but I think next time I'll definitely put at least one cold call bonanza. I think that was fun. Cool, awesome guys. Well, I appreciate you all, and let's get out to more MMAs. Love it.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, guys. See ya.